to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and it is Tuesday night, and it is Ross Gregory here, who is going to need to move onto his hotspot. Unfortunately, his internet was perfect before we came on, and now his internet is not very good at all. He looks like, well, I'm sure there'll be a few lookalikes coming of Ross, so I'll let him switch over to his internet while I just welcome you to the show, and we talk about what's on for the rest of the week. Wednesday night, we'll see Geordie's here. Geordie's there at 6 o'clock. Thursday night, we'll see Wednesday night, then at 7 o'clock, we'll see Liam Kennedy. So we've got two shows on Wednesday night for you. Thursday, you will be pleased to hear Supermac and Gibbo will be back. So Thursday, this coming Thursday, Supermac and Gibbo will be back on the channel, much to a lot of people's delight. We couldn't get the show on last week for obvious reasons. Friday night, we'll see the Amigos. That will be 5 o'clock, of course, until 7. And then the weekend shows are yet to be confirmed. But Ross still trying to sort his internet out. He is at home, so hopefully we'll get it sorted out. Seems to be a little bit of an issue there. So while he's sorting it out, so we don't have any more delays later on in the show, I will play the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to contact the guys, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to New Workwear. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider launched in 2018. For more information, go to their website, newworkwear.com. Big thanks, as always, to Media Arts for the help with the video side of things. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. Hit the thumb up under the video, which likes the video, and click share to share to your other social media. Click join if you want to become a member of the channel for as little as $1.99, or take a one-off payment for the cult membership. You can get in via this QR code if you've got a smartphone, or look for membership pack on the website, nufcmatters.com. What do you get for your one-off £25 payment? You get a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, if you want a car sticker, all you need to do is subscribe to the show and then email John at NUFC Matters, and he will post you a free car sticker out. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket where you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. The new Alan Shearer raffle is underway. 150 tickets at £1 a ticket. You could win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball from the 260 dinner. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a few events coming up. August the 5th sees Gavin Peacock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £10, and you can get them now from nufcmatters.com. Our Christmas event takes place on the 7th of December at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that's an evening with Frank Clark. Tickets are £15 and available from nufcmatters.com. Finally, Waddle, Keegan, Beardsley and Friends, the class of 84, is on at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 23rd. Tickets are now available from the Tyne Theatre and Opera House.co.uk or telephone 0844 2491 000. That's the box office telephone number 0844 2491 000.
Ross is back and looking less like an oil painting, which is fantastic. That was what you were compared to. There'll be a lookalike on Friday's show now, Ross, I'm sure, of an oil painting and you. Tom Dixon, as always, in early with a question. He says, question for Ross. With us already getting Tonali in, do you think Newcastle could go for Kefren Thuram with Liverpool already ruling him out? Do you think Newcastle are going to go big again, Ross? I've got to be honest. I think there'll be another big buy. I don't think we're going to be going for an attacking option, especially with what we've got. I'm more inclined to think defensively. I think left back's probably more of a priority. Centre half to a lesser extent. But what's your thoughts? I mean, Thuram's a name. We went through a load of names on the fans forum last night. What's your thoughts on that? Is Newcastle likely to go for that player?
I kind of agree with you, Steve. I think now that Tonali's in, I think first and foremost is they wanted to strengthen that midfield area. Bringing in someone like Sandro Tonali, he's a versatile player, very similar in some ways, I think, to Bruno, in that he can play in a couple of different positions in that midfield. He doesn't have to necessarily just be sat as a 6. He can be an 8 or a bit more box to box as well. But what he will do is he'll free up someone like Bruno who can play in different positions in that midfield three. I don't think it's no secret that Newcastle were looking for an attacking midfielder. The James Maddison, Chase was well documented, as was Dominic Szoboszlai as well. Two players that they really did like. You could look at Barreca as well, and they're looking at their midfield option. So I wouldn't discount that they will look at another attacking midfielder just to add some further quality in there, someone who can unlock that defense and pick a pass when teams are sitting deep and putting men behind the ball in a kind of that low block that we saw a few teams do towards the end of last season. But you're right, Steve. I think left back is a priority for the club. Whether the left back should be a priority or not is I suppose open to debate a little bit. There's certainly several left backs there who can do a job. Dan Burn was excellent in there for the majority of the season, even though it's a slightly uncomfortable position for him. He is more comfortable as a centre half, I suppose, but he has played left back a lot of times. You've got Matt Targett in there as well, who is a very solid and dependable left back. Paul Dummett and Jamal Lewis, who are obviously less in the frame, but there's certainly bodies there who can do that. But I think we've talked about it on this show before, is where can Newcastle improve? Where's them areas that they can get an extra 2, 3, 4% out of to improve their team and push onto the next level, or at least as much stay at the level that they're at. And left back is an obvious area. I do think centre half is another area where they will want to strengthen. And I can see them certainly bringing in 2 more, 3 more players at good money as well. Really, really good money. Whether it's 55, 60 millions like what they've spent on Tonali and Alexander Isak and whatever. But I do think there'll be another couple of 30 to 40 million pound signings at least before the window closes.
There's a lot of hoo-ha on social media, Twitter in particular, about Newcastle not parading Tonali onto the pitch and all of that. I mean, the kid's been away. You know what I mean? He's you think people would be delighted with him just signing the contract and being announced as a player, but it was a bit of a knee jerk again, just from that minority on Twitter. I mean, I was discussing this with a few pals today, and we were saying, we're all from the era, you included, of just going out onto going up to the corner shop or going into the town and getting a Chronicle. We used to get our news from Alan Oliver and John Gibson on a regular basis, and the other reporters who were, the other lads who were reporting on Newcastle United over the years, or would stick Metro Radio on a night time and listen to, Charles Harrison and the lads giving us their updates on the 6 o'clock news when we all got in from work. So nowadays, it's at the end of your fingertip. And Twitter is an easy platform to go and share your opinion, and we do get a lot of knee-jerk reactions, and I think what we more or less said it's a minority. You know, it's not a great cross section of the fans' views. You know, so ultimately, you know, from my perspective, I shrugged it off. But you could see people getting involved and people arguing and, you know, people falling out over it. We've just signed a world-class player, you know, as one of our, you know, our second signing of the summer, if you like. We should all be happy, and we should be happy where we are after having years and years and years of gloom under the Mike Ashley administration. We should be delighted, but it just seems that some people are still just twisting on 21, Ross.
It's human nature, Steve, isn't it? I think a lot of people just like to pick fault, you know, like to cause a bit of a stir, like to... Social media, in Twitter in particular, is in some ways it's your new bar, it's a new pub. It's you know, your pub chat that you have. You used to go in there and that's where you used to have a little bit of crack with your mates about the game, about Newcastle, about football in general, about life in general, politics, whatever it is. You know, that was your kind of the place that you gather socially. Now it's so easy just to go onto social media and onto Twitter and you know, and we've all seen it with barroom, you know, kind of bores, if you like, who just want to pick fault, who just want to argue for the sake of arguing, and that's what Twitter's like. It's a great place to be at times, and it's also a cesspit at times. There's no two ways about it, and I don't say that hypocritically, because, you know, I'm on there very, very often. I'm on, you know, looking through it regularly. But sometimes some of the conversations and some of the debates in there just leave you shaking your head a little bit. You know, it's a different world, Steve. You're right. You know, funny, I was out last night with a lot of editors and journalists, and we were talking about kind of changes in the industry and how it's changed over the years. And a good friend of mine is working at Tyne Tees, and he was talking about, you know, the 6 o'clock news, and you know, that's not like they still have the Tyne Tees news at 6, but it's, you know, for a different generation growing up, that they don't know when the news is on. They used to, they can get their news anytime they like, as you say, you know, on the internet, on a touch of a button, a touch of a finger. They don't have to wait. There's not that appointment to view sort of element with it. The same with the Chronicle. You don't have to wait for the first edition or the last edition, or for the pink to come out after a game. So it's a different world, different conversations that you have, but it's all just in a I suppose in a different environment. But some of the cracks are exactly the same. It's just done on social media now, as opposed to being done in the bar like it used to be.
Yeah, I've just laughed at Tom Lynch. His comment there. He says, I found out about Shearer signing on CFAX. Yes, teletext and CFAX, Ross. Remember them days?
I remember, you know, reading about Andy Cole being sold on CFAX as well. And that was it. You know, you used to have to, you put in 301 or 302 to get you onto the football pages, and then you had to scroll through it. Sometimes there was a little gossip page. I think it was 312, and you had to put that in, but you had to wait for it to click through. There was maybe 5 or 6 pages, and you had to wait for 20 minutes until it clicked onto the final page that you wanted to read. And then if you didn't read it in time or pause it in time, you'd click back. So it's a world of difference. It's you know, trying to explain this to my lad who's 20, and my daughter who's 15, who are just used to instant news, instant gratification in terms of information and everything else like that. It's a different world, but it's a better world in a lot of ways. But some people just haven't quite adapted as well as others, I don't think.
No, I think you're right, mate. I think you're right. I mean, there is a quest, there is a thirst for knowledge. That's the right word that I was looking for. There's a thirst for knowledge, especially on Newcastle United, especially on football. I mean, you know, I think most of the podcasts that are across the Newcastle United, you know, YouTube, social media account are, you know, always experience greater numbers in the summer. A lot of people say, why do you do many shows in the summer? It's because ultimately, you know, it is very popular. People want to know what's going on. They want to ask questions, especially when there's people like yourself on, or Liam on, or Ben Jacobs. People want to know, they've got questions coming in tonight. They want to know what's going on. So it is interesting to see that. And I think, we're part of it. I think that's why, especially on UFC Matters, we try not to lead people up the garden path. We started in that kind of way when we had takeover talk. We as everyone knows, we had some really good contacts and really good sources, and we were very careful what we put out. But it's I see my responsibility as a podcaster in the same respect as you will see it in your job at Reach PLC. You've got to be responsible because ultimately people watch you, subscribe to you, follow you, whatever. They're doing it because they've got a trust in you, and they've got to enjoy what you're talking about as well, of course. But we all have a responsibility to report, to report fairly, but also report sensibly.
100%, Steve. It's an interesting time of the year. This year, or it comes around in that kind of June to end of August. Is a media provider, is a media outlet. The numbers that we see in terms of people reading our content online, or watching listening to podcasts, or watching YouTube videos, or whatever. But the thirst, like you say, for information is extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary. You've got to try and service that in the right way. You've got to, you can't lead people up the garden path. You're right. You can't, give people false hope or false promise. You try to make it so that you're providing is kind of all round a service as possible. I've seen, and sometimes we get it wrong as media. We get it wrong. Sometimes we get it right. I've seen some ridiculous headlines over the last 2 or 3 weeks, which are really kind of close to the bone. I've seen some great articles. I've seen some great ways of selling it. Look, it's a business, and I always say this about the transfer window. I don't think that punters take it as seriously as what sometimes us media take it. I think they like a little bit of gossip. I think everybody likes a bit of gossip. Everybody likes a little bit of transfer rumors and suggestions. And I know that the links come in thick and fast. And I've explained on this show previously about why some of the links come in something that can be reported in good faith because you've sourced it with different contacts. Might not end up coming through because things change and it's a moving feast. But the thirst for information, and people like it. We're here to provide as much information as what we can in detail, but also just to entertain as well. There's got to be that enjoyment level to the transfer window. You can't get too stressed by it. You can't get too angry about the way a player has been announced, or if he hasn't appeared on the pitch, or if you've been linked with a player that in the signing doesn't come through. Let's just enjoy it, enjoy the ride, enjoy the silly season for want of a better phrase, because it's sharp disappears. But the amount of people that we do see on our platforms at this point in the year shows that there is that interest there, and people just do enjoy it.
Yeah, Club Call. Kevin Smith reminds us of that. Did you ever ring that and ring up Club Call, Ross?
I think I probably did. Yeah, I think I wasn't paying the bill at the time, so yeah, I probably did. Nah, yeah,
me neither. It was always an 0800 whatever number, wasn't it? And it was a ridiculous amount to ring it, and there was always hello and welcome to Club Call, and then it would go on for about a minute and a half, and there'd be music and that, and then by the time you got to it, if don't forget, make sure you let the bill payer know. So by that time you're 2 minutes in. It got to about 3 minutes before you got any kind of relevant news, and usually it was something you could have picked up in the Evening Chronicle, as you can still do now. But yeah, the Pink as well. Stu says, I was always amazed how quick the Pink was on sale after the game. Those guys had a time machine. Yeah, it was amazing, Ross, wasn't it? Back in the good old days, how quickly the turnaround of the Pink was amazing.
The Pink was an incredible product. I was fortunate enough to do some work on the Pink before its sad demise, but just an incredible product. It was literally printed within about 3 or 4 minutes of the final whistle. The work that was put into it, and seeing it on both sides, and then the speed that it printed got out to the sellers, out on the streets. You know, it was an incredible feat of journalism. Those Saturday evening, you know, football papers were obviously of their time, and you know, you could never have them now. We tried, actually. We did try in a couple of areas in my old role of bringing back a couple of them to see if there was the appetite, and there was a small appetite, but not enough to kind of sustain it as a product. But yeah, incredible feat of journalism, them football pinks.
Yeah, Mag Debates, I did that as well. He says, I'd buy the Sunday papers when I came out of Madison's on a Sunday morning at about 2 a.m. Yeah, if there was a big news story, you would come out and the guys would be standing outside nightclubs selling the Sunday Sun. You know, and you'd wake up on a morning with a half-eaten pizza in your bedroom, and the Sunday Sun would be lying next to you if Newcastle had a decent result, and the pink. If you'd managed to carry it around in your back pocket without it being crumpled up or somebody nicking it and taking it back to their house, you know what I mean? But Stephen Kennedy, very kind. He said, let's be honest, this channel has something for everyone. It's not a one-trick pony and the rest. There's some good channels out there, Stephen. You know, there's some really good channels out there. And David McLeod rightly points out it was 0898. And John, you're right as well. It was good to see you today, John. It says club call number ended in 1892. Yes, I've got a card. I'm quite meticulous with stuff like that. I think I've still got a club call card. I will dig it out. I will scan it, and I'll stick it up on here. Okay, a lot of people asking about this. This could be something. This could be breaking news. I don't know. A lot of people asking about PCP, Ross, changing their name. Kevin Smith is saying that you know, they're changing the name to LLP. So maybe you can have a look at that anyway, whilst we're talking. Yeah, Kevin Smith just saying, do we know what the change is? It might just be business change. Who knows? I've not heard anything of that. But just getting back to Tonali before we move on, because I know we want to cover a couple of things in the Chronicle. What do you think he's going to bring to the team, Ross, now that we know he's going to be playing in black and white? I mean, he's, you know, Champions League semi-finalist, somebody who has played 130 games, you know, in the top league in Italy. You know, captain of the under-21s. I mean, he's superb. It's a superb acquisition, isn't it? It's a really big signing.
It's a statement signing, Steve. Yeah, it's a real statement signing to bring in somebody of his caliber, of his potential. Look, I don't think he's the finished product, and I'm not saying I've watched reams and reams of Italian football, so I'm not. I would never try to make myself out to be an expert, but the bits that I have seen, he looks like he's got a lot in his locker. It looks like he can pass a ball, he can dig in. I've heard him. It's interesting because I've heard him described in some quarters as being the next Pirlo, but in other quarters as being very much like Gattuso, and you couldn't get two more different players, I don't think, than Pirlo and Gattuso. One who was a silky playmaker, and the other one who was a bit of a kind of scratter around the midfield. And I think that probably sums up Tonali well, in that he can do both. He's got a little bit of silk, but he's also got the steel as well. So I do think he's going to hopefully be a really good addition to the team. As always with young players, and he is still young, he's only 23. As always with young players coming in from a foreign country, you've got to give him that little bit of time to adapt. He might take his time to find his feet a little bit. I'm always slightly reserved with players coming from Serie A as well, because you know, if you look through the history books in terms of not just Newcastle but the rest of the Premier League, there's not many Italian players who've actually stamped their authority or been a huge success in the Premier League. There is some, but there's not. You know, if you look at the impact that the French players have made on the Premier League over the years, or Belgian players, or Scandinavian players, German players, you can probably count on the fingers of two hands the amount of top quality Italian imports that they've been. So, and Newcastle have had their fair share of Italians come in who've not succeeded really, who've not or who've done it only fleetingly and then moved on. So I think we will have to give him a little bit of time to adapt. But I do see him sitting in that kind of sixth role initially and freeing freeing Bruno up and freeing a couple of others up. It's going to make for an interesting midfield, and I'd be interested to hear what everybody's in the comments, what people's ideas are. What would be your ideal midfield three out of the players that you've got? Because there's going to be some disappointed players. Sean Longstaff, the season that he's just had, is he going to get into a first choice team? What do you do with Joe Linton? Does he go in there? What do you do with Joe Willock, who was fantastic in that run-in as well? So it's great to have these options. It'll be really interesting to see how Eddie Howe manages his squad, and when everybody is fit, what his first choice midfield is. But I do think we'll have to give Tonali just a little bit of breathing space to adapt to the English football.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the situation that really made me smile this week was that Jacob Murphy and Sean Longstaff are back in training. Going up, was it Newcastle Blue Star?
Yeah.
Training up there, doing some early training before they get called in, Ross. That's dedication, mate. And that shows those two lads aren't going to give up the ghost on their midfield slots.
No, and no, should they? And to be honest, someone like Tonali's got to come in and he's got to win that shirt off Sean Longstaff. He's got to win that shirt off Joe Willock or Bruno or whoever it is. They're the guys who are in possession, and you can't knock them because of what they did last season. The performances that they put in consistently from August all the way through to May. Consistently, Sean Longstaff was outstanding. Joe Linton was arguably player of the season in many people's books. Bruno we know about. Joe Willock, at times was unplayable. I was just watching on Twitter earlier today that pass for Alexander Isak that Joe Willock put through for the goal against Spurs, and you're thinking, how can you not have somebody like that in your starting team? But that's what it's all about, going into Europe and playing extra games, the extra pressures, the extra intensity. You need a big squad. So Tonali coming in is a fantastic addition, but he's got to win that jersey. He's got to win that starting shirt off the lads who are currently in possession of it.
Do you think he'll do what he's done with everybody else, Ross, in the sense that, Botman had to earn his place in the team, Isak had to earn his place in the team. He's gonna. I mean, Eddie Howe is not going to put Tonali into that starting lineup unless, I guess, that he feels he can. You would imagine Tonali will start as a squad player like everybody else has. He'd have to earn his place.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely bang on, Steve. The way that he was patient with Bruno when he first came in. If you go back to when Bruno came in the January, he didn't come straight in, or he played a couple of games and then he had to wait and bide his time. Sven Botman's perfect example. Same with Alexander Isak. I think it's a really fair point, Steve. He'll be Anthony Gordon, another one who has had to wait and had to fight for his place. So I think that'll be the case with Tonali. I think he'll have to take a little bit of time to adapt, get used to Eddie Howe's training methods, get used to how Eddie Howe wants to play, because the way Eddie Howe coaches and the way Newcastle play will be completely different to what he's been used to at Milan. Albeit, Milan's a huge club, don't get me wrong, and he's played in a Champions League semi-final recently, and he's obviously an outstanding player, but you've still got to be able to adapt to a different walk of life. It's the same when you go to a new job. For people who work in a particular company for 5 or 10 years, you go somewhere else and you go into a new job, and you might have the ability to do that job, but it takes you a little while. When I first came back over to where I am now, it took me a good 6 months before I felt comfortable in the role, and maybe it's even longer. At times I thought, I'm a little bit fish out of water here, but you can do the job. It's just getting used to the different management styles, the different structures, the different expectations. And that's no different if you're a professional footballer, or if you're an accountant, or if you're a journalist, or whatever your walk of life is.
Yeah, I've just seen a message from Darren Smith on Twitter as well. Darren asking if we've stopped the podcast. It's why you need to subscribe. Some of you who maybe rely too heavily on Twitter as your port of call to see what shows are on, don't forget, Mr. Musk has changed it so that you can't look at as many tweets. So you may well be missing me tweets. So if you haven't already subscribed, then please do. And as we are halfway through the show, maybe it's a good time, as we've already done the ads, to give you a little reminder of how you can do that.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Okay, John has put this up. Name change for PCP is protection from the bankruptcy case, in my opinion. Just a suggestion there, guys. But that could be the case. But I wouldn't read anything into it. It certainly won't affect Newcastle United. That is for certain. Reposts saying that Maxi could be going to Saudi. I mean, anything, hitting, your place, Ross, about potential outgoings. I mean, it's, again, incomings are very, very hush hush. Outgoings tend to be the same at Newcastle. We tend to find out, maybe it's a day before or on the day at times that someone's gone. We know Carl Darlow is, a deal that Newcastle will get done this summer. It's a case of, where he goes to and how much Newcastle get. Maxi, to a lesser extent, I haven't heard anything about that myself today, I've got to be honest. But any other gossip coming out of your place, mate, that would be worth mentioning tonight?
It's quiet on the outgoings front. I think there's obviously 2 or 3 that you're absolutely sure are going to be leaving. Ryan Fraser, Carl Darlow certainly will be leaving. I've said before, I expect if there's a decent offer that comes in for Maxi, then I do think that he will be potentially on his way. I think he is somebody that they will consider offers for, but it has to be right for the club, for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves before the window closes. And I know he's one of those players who kind of splits opinion a little bit amongst the fan base, but we'll wait and see how it goes. We did a survey or a piece on the Chronicle with a keep or sell poll thing that we've been running, and the response on ASM was interesting. I think it was about 69% of people who voted who thought that he should stay, wanted to keep him at Newcastle for next season. That's a good 31% who thought it would be best to sell him this summer. So he is one of those players who splits opinion a little bit. But in terms of anything concrete, nothing that I've heard, nothing that's come across my desk at the minute. But I think it will be. I think we'll start to see now that 1 or 2 or 3 deals have been done across the Premier League. The dominoes will start to fall a little bit. There was a big rush to get some deals done before the June the 30th cut-off period for obvious reasons, financial reasons, in terms of FFP and what goes on what budget and what goes on what reporting line. So there was a good rush before the end of the month. Slowed down a little bit, but again, now that 1 or 2 deals are starting to pick up, I think it'll be a knock-on effect, and we'll see a bit more interest as we head into the back end of, or later on in July and back end of the month.
Sutty asks, do you think there's any substance in this being linked to Harvey Barnes? Obviously Newcastle heavily linked with Maddison, and that we know what ended up with that. I mean, Harvey Barnes, a different type of player to Maddison, but is it just paper talk, Ross? Do you think?
I think they like him. I do think they like him. Absolutely think he's a player that Newcastle have watched and scouted. Again, whether they need that type of player right now. I think there's more pressing priorities, if you like. I think he's somebody who is, he's had a fantastic season at Leicester. To be fair, he's scored a lot of goals and created a lot of chances, and he's too good for the Championship, in my opinion. But do Newcastle need another wide player when they have, currently ASM, Isak who can play out there, Joe Linton, so on and so forth, Miggy Almiron, Jacob Murphy. There's a lot of options out there. So I do think that they will look to bring in another attacking player, definitely before the end of the window, and maybe it will be Harvey Barnes, but left back and centre halves are definitely the areas that they want to target first, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Gordon's done remarkably well as well for England under 21s. He's having a great tournament. And I mean, scored 2 goals, got the winner the other night. Certainly, flourishing in that position. And I mean, we know the standard isn't Premier League standard, but it gives Eddie Howe a bit of food for thought, doesn't it, in so many ways?
I think this is a perfect tournament for Anthony Gordon because he didn't get much of a run towards the end of in the second half of the season. He was in and out of Newcastle's team. This has come at the perfect time for him, where he can get some momentum. He can build up his fitness. He can find some confidence. And he scored a couple of goals. He's looked really, really sharp. He's worked hard. He's been playing in this kind of almost like a false 9 type of role. He's not playing out necessarily out wide. He looks like a quite fluid, flexible formation. I'm sure Eddie Howe's watching it and thinking, maybe he can accommodate Anthony Gordon in Newcastle team. Certainly he'll give him food for thought, but I think it's a really good tournament for Anthony Gordon to get his teeth into, and better than having a month or 2 off over the summer and then coming back. He's going to come back fit, firing, full of confidence, and hopefully Newcastle will see the benefit of that.
Couple of other player questions. Any truth in the Anderson rumour from Palace? I'm not sure what that is, Spenny, to be honest, but maybe if you can just drop it in the chat and let us know to save us Googling it. Spenny also wants to know about Jesper Lindstrom. He says rumours seem to be getting stronger, Ross and Steve. Apparently he's come out and said that he would like to leave Frankfurt. So a couple of other names there, Ross. I mean, Anderson, I presume, must be Elliot Anderson, and talk maybe of him going. BT's also...
I think that one's Joachim Anderson, or Joachim Anderson, however you pronounce it, the centre half at Palace, he's been linked with Newcastle in the past, and he is a good player. I think there probably is a little bit of mileage in this one, but whether it's something that's a go. I can't remember how much they bought him for. I think they bought him for something not long ago for I don't know, with about 15-17 million, something like that. He's a Danish international, and he's had a good season at Palace. Interestingly, Newcastle have also been linked with the other Palace centre half, Mark Gouy, the England international. So whether they like them both or one or the other, but buying those type of players is going to cost Newcastle if that's the route they want to go down. I think they'll those 2 centre halves, Anderson and Gouy at Palace, will be looking at upwards of 40 million, and whether that's something that Newcastle can or want to go for at this point in time, we'll have to wait and see. But both have really good seasons at Palace, and hence why they're being linked with a move to Newcastle.
Yeah, Gordon playing up front as a lone number 9 for the under-21 side will be different to starting number 9 for Newcastle. Yeah, it's a fair point. Gordon's a great player. Give him time, he will be invaluable. Good evening, Paul. Stevie's a centre-half. Yeah, that's thanks to you for saying that, Ross. Saved the day on that one. It was difficult when you only get a surname, of course, and you're trying to think who it is. Joachim Anderson, pal from Palace. Cheers, Spenny. Good question, though. And yeah, I do remember him being linked. Okay, I did have a couple of other questions, not player related, and one which certainly leads to a Chronicle article which we've seen. John asking, have you heard any more on the ground redevelopment? I'm going to just stick this link in the chat so people can have a look at it at their own convenience. But Kieran Kelly's run a piece in the Chronicle today. Newcastle's transformational stadium wish backed by developer next door as club undergo review. Tell us more about that, Ross.
Yeah, Kieran's done a couple of good pieces on the ground development. It's an area that he's really interested in and likes. likes writing about it, and it's obviously an area, a topic which is, it always gets a response. It always provokes a bit of debate. I think it's outside of transfers, it's probably the biggest talking point amongst the Newcastle fan base at the minute. You know, we've kind of discussed a lot of this, but Kieran's gone out and done a piece and spoken to a property developer who owns a couple of the properties outside the back of the East Stand on that Leazes Terrace, and got his view on it. And it's interesting. It just makes an interesting, a different angle on the story. And you know, as a property owner and developer, what he would think about the East Stand being developed, because that's obviously an area where Newcastle will look at. But we're no further forward really with stadium redevelopments. It needs in terms of, I suppose, in terms of increasing the capacity or anything else like that, we're no further forward, because it's going to be a bit of a process. It will need feasibility studies. It will need to be looked at with planners and architects and everything else like that. But in terms of the rest of St James's, then, you know, Newcastle are, you know, looking at the safe standing and the safe standing section at St James's, and again, another piece from Kieran he's done today is that they've enlisted the help of a company called Stadia by JL Events, and another company called KH Stadium Seating Solutions, who've manufactured and installed that kind of rail seating at various different Premier League grounds at Anfield and everything, and I think at Wolves as well. So yeah, that's an area of the ground which is obviously going to be trialled. I think it's, you know, it'll be able to fit in about 1,500 or 1,800 supporters, you know, which will be able to stand. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And you know, like I say, anytime that we do a piece in the Chronicle around St James's Park, whether it's the redevelopment, whether it's the expansion, whether it's, you know, what is needed there, it's such a burning issue for fans, because of the progress that the club's made, obviously, and how many fans are now clamouring for tickets and can't get in. So I think it's one of those that's just going to roll and roll, certainly for the next 6 to 12 months at least.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen photographs of the standing area yet. I know that there was some circulating, not quite what I expected. I've got to be honest. I was thinking it could be similar to Liverpool, but of course as well, you know, it has to be done in a certain way, a specific way. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I'll not be using it, but it'll be interesting to see what it actually looks like. They might do safe standing Gallagher lower and seating upper tier when construction starts, as Paul. A few other points that were coming in. Yeah, just referring back to what we were talking about before. JB says, I used to buy a Sunday paper at King's Cross at midnight before they stopped the overnight train home. I did that as well. Another thing which I used to do. You should be able to get the Sunday Sun in King's Cross in London and read it on the way back, although sometimes it was the Sunderland version. And that used to be quite annoying for Newcastle fans, because those of you who are completely unaware of what it used to be like, well, you would have a Newcastle version and a Sunderland version, and sometimes if your distributor, maybe WH Smith's or JJ Gillespie's, who used to distribute the paper, if they picked the wrong pile up, well, woe betide you. Your shop, if you got the Sunderland news, you weren't very happy. So Video Paul says, because we lived down south, my dad had a subscription to the Chronicle in the Pink. It would be Tuesday before I could read the match report. Paul, that's brilliant, mate. Absolutely brilliant. Keep them coming in if you've got any stories like that. David Knight says, hi, Steve. Hi, Ross. Any idea if Newcastle will release a kit with a Champions League badge on, or should I give up and just buy a standard one? I live in Crewe, so too far for the club shop. Interesting question, David. I don't know the exact answer, but what I would say is the way the Castore release tops, one would imagine they will, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you might have to go to Adam Pearson's channel. I do believe Adam did a video with regards to the top, and I think a lot of people had gone to get names, etc. on the back, to be told that they haven't got the correct. It's different numbering, I think, or different lettering for the Champions League games. So those people who've gone to get a Premier League top Newcastle United's new home top and have got the Champions League badge on it, then it's not really what you should have done. You need, if you want to, it's a bit strange. It's going to be different numbering, I think. The Champions League numbering or lettering is different. And what I remember from Adam's report was that they don't have it in at the club shop yet. So if you've got the Champions League badge on, then you've got a bit of a mismatch, bit of a nightmare, that, Ross, I guess. But it wouldn't bother me, but I can imagine it would bother lots of people. And you're going to see probably a few kids hauling their mum and their dad back to the shop to say, well, I want the proper numbers on the proper shirt, etc.
Oh yeah, there's definitely going to be a few. We've spoke about kits again are another hot topic amongst fans, aren't they? People are obsessed in times and the like that kits to be just so. And anytime a new kit comes out, it's a bone of contention. There's always debate around it. So yeah, I can imagine that continuing. But no, I'm the same as you. I don't know anything about I don't know anything concrete about the Champions League badge version.
No, me neither. But it'd be interesting to see. Is the Sunday Sun still going, says Dave? Yes, it is. You can still get it, can't you? Hard copy?
You can, yeah, hard copy, yeah. Again, a paper that's close to my heart because I worked on it for a few years, and I was out last Saturday with a few of the old Sunday Sun gang, Neil Farrington and Stevie Brown and Dylan Younger and a couple of Stu Jameson, all worked on the Sunday Sun back in the day. So when it was a different product slightly to what it is now, but yeah, good times working on the Sunday Sun. It was always busy that Saturday night trying to get the paper out nice and early, and like you say, Steve, doing various different editions as well. So yeah, a lot of fond memories of the Sunday Sun, but you can still get it. It's great for obviously for local football coverage as well. Some of the grassroots stuff and the non-league stuff that goes in there is excellent.
Yeah, John says apparently one of the plans for the fan zone is to include a walkway to the Gallagher upper height. Interesting proposal. Would look very good in my opinion. They could do a slide. Maybe it's John as well. I remember my dad sending me to the paper, lad, saying make sure it's not the Sunderland pink. Yes, we did that those days. I loved the pink just after the game. It had so much sport in. Do they still print the pink? Print the pink? No, they don't, Paul. That finished. And the last version of the pink. Anybody name the player in the chat who was on the front of it? I know who it was. So just for fun, tell us who you think it was in the chat. Quickly as well, Evening Standard tonight reporting that Newcastle have had bids up to 21 million rejected by Southampton for Livramento. Tino Livramento. Chronicle have just reposted that today at about 3:10, Ross.
Yeah. Interestingly, we put that post out and again, the amount of people that flooded onto the website as soon as that went out, we'd had a piece as well. I think Aaron Stokes had done a piece on the Cron earlier about Livramento and the difficulties around that deal that seemed to be cropping up. I think Newcastle were probably looking to get that deal done not on the cheap, but certainly weren't expecting or weren't wanting to pay big money for Livramento. He's seen as a backup potentially to Kieran Trippier, but it looks like Southampton are wanting close to kind of 30 million they're asking for, and that's a heck of a lot of money for a backup right back. So he is highly rated, Livramento, but it just looks like that deal's it's not necessarily going to be an easy one to do, and there is talk as well that Livramento doesn't really want to come to Newcastle and be a second choice to Kieran Trippier, and you can understand that. If you're 21 years old and you're a Premier League footballer, and I know he's coming back from an injury, but he's very, very highly rated. Do you want to go somewhere where you're going to be second fiddle to Kieran Trippier? It could be a difficult one to pull off that one. So at the minute it looks unlikely to happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I would say that as well. When you hear that somebody doesn't want to come and play a second fiddle, well, that's the end of that, But again, from our perspective, you just think, we'll wait and see. Wait until they've got the flag above their or the scarf above their heads. Well done to Tom Lynch and BT. Michael Owen versus Michael Owen for Newcastle, of course. West Ham 4-2, and oh yes was the headline. As Newcastle beat West Ham away. But Michael Owen was the player, of course, on the very last version of the pitch.
And interestingly, because if I remember right, I was working on the Sunday Sun on that day and for those who don't know, that the Sunday Sun was on the floor in Thompson House. The Sunday Sun was on the top floor, and the Pink and the Chronicle was on the second floor, which was below. And there was, I think the game got delayed, didn't it? There was a delay or something on the game, and it was the last ever obviously copy of the Pink, and it had to be out so quick after a certain time so it could hit all the distributors it could get out. So, and there was a real panic on downstairs because the game had been delayed, and it was a late finish, and that just almost screwed up all the production times, all the print times, and everything else like that. So it was a proper mad flap. And there is, I think, Alan Oliver was filing his copy, I think, from Upton Park, and it was a little bit harum scarum, but that was the last ever copy of the Pink, 2005.
Amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing to think, that it's been that long. Fine, there it is. Final Evening Chronicle Football Pink was published on December the 17th, 2005. And Tom says, I used to love getting the Pink on the way home from the match. I used to get the bus home, and by the time you get off, the Pink would be in the newsagents. We used to hang around. We used to go and get chips, and then we used to go to the Monument and wait. And the Monument one used to be the first guy who had it, usually around about 5:45. Then we'd stand up there, eat our chips, read the Pink, and then have a slow walk down to the Bridge Hotel, which was the one bar in Newcastle that had a pool table. And we would get there. And on a Saturday, the bars didn't open until 7 o'clock. So we'd have an amble down, we'd have a walk down there. We'd get there about 7:15. We'd be reading the Pink. We'd have finished with chips by then, and then wait till 7 o'clock. And then it was a charge through the door to get your 20 pence or your 50 pence on the table to get your place on the pool table. But God, how things have changed. Like, it's been like all our yesteryears tonight on this show. It was always interesting on away games as well, says Tom, to read their Pink equivalents on the train home. Of course, the Sunderland Echo had its own version as well, Ross.
Yeah, the Sunderland Echo had is, and theirs kept going a little bit longer than the Newcastle one. But again, I was by this time I was working for the Sunderland Echo, and kept it going as a bit of a digital version, which would still come out bang on, or pretty much soon after the full time whistle. But it was a digital version. We had them all over the country. There was I think the last one to go was the Portsmouth News, which went, and then we brought it back, or the Portsmouth News. I was working for the company that owned the Portsmouth News at the time, and they tried to bring it back, and it came back with a little bit of success, and then eventually just fell away again. But fantastic products, really exciting to work on these papers as well. As a journalist, when you're filing copy up against deadline, I've been at Gateshead games trying to file copy from Gateshead games and from non-league games, and from working in at St James's as well, trying to get your stuff over into the Pink or the Sunday Sun to hit these really tight deadlines. Really exciting as a journalist, and it's great when you read the comments and hear some of the memories and the feedback from people as to how much they used to enjoy it, because it was great times and stressful, but great to work on.
No, definitely. And I think the bonus as well for us, Ross, because we used to manage non-league teams, of course, was the coverage of the non-league game in the Pink. It was some fantastic, coverage of league tables, etc. So it was a go-to for us lads as well on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Oh, absolutely. It was you would get your again, obviously kind of pre the explosion of the internet and social media and everything else like that, but it was the only place that you could really get these league tables or in-depth reports. But the non-league guys used to do, Bob Morland and Jeff Bowen and people like that, and used to do a really good job on pulling that together as well, and providing a service. And similarly with the Sunday Sun, used to get all the games in straight after the match, and league tables and everything else like that. So great. Both papers were at the time were great champions of grassroots sport as well as the professional game.
Yeah, Michael Clark says, I used to go into the Simpson Hotel in Wallsend, 6 o'clock for the Pink. And Tom, I've definitely got a copy tucked away. I've also got the very last copy of the News of the World, I think, somewhere. Like, why on earth I keep these things? Beating West Ham away wouldn't be special next season. That's how far we've already come, says John. Bring the Pink back, says Dave. Sadly, printed printed stuff isn't what it was now. People are more used to having the news at the end of their finger. Anyone remember when Beardsley played in goal against West Ham and made such a good save? Even the ref applauded. Yeah, amazing that. Can you name the other 2 goalkeepers though, Gary? There was 3 goalkeepers in that game. Stick that in the chat if you know. I bet you Tom will know. I used the pink and the Gallagher Bugs, but I miss it, says Spenny. Needs most, says Roger. We used to have the supporter club meeting at the Bridge, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's right. The Newcastle United Supporters Club, based on Percy Place, I think it was. Sadie and her husband used to run the little shop, and that was fantastic. We spent many days in there. Peter makes a point that he didn't let 8 in. He does, John. Yeah. Lots of funny comments coming in tonight. How are you? Must have done the quiz in the pink. No, I didn't. Definitely didn't. Did you, Ross?
No, man, I don't think I did.
Yeah, great for non-league, Steve. That's right. Dave says, remember Roy Aitken signing the pink for me? I've still got it. Yeah, God, feed the bear. Sunday Sun local cricket coverage was brilliant. Loved looking for my name in the coverage, says Stephen. Brilliant. And when I have a Sunday session in the club, it's always good to read the Sunday Sun with local team news. Yeah, the football, product place, David. That's right. Thank you, mate. Roger says, yeah, he likes to read it and he's local. The Sunday team news, what I was going to say is it all moved to that. The non-league moved to that, didn't it? And it's good non-league coverage on the Sunday Sun, Ross, actually, these days.
Yeah, it is. The guys do a good job. Mark Carruthers is a good
top lad, Mark.
Yeah, he's very good at and so dedicated and passionate about his non-league football, as we all are. But the Sunday Sun is a real good home for that. I was literally just reading some of his pieces in the Sunday Sun before I came on. Actually, some of he did a nice piece with Paul Brayson, ex Newcastle player who's now taken over as manager at Newcastle Benfield, and he did a piece with Paul Robinson at Newcastle Blue Star about Sean Longstaff and Jacob Murphy coming in training with them this last week. So yeah, some really great non-league coverage in the Sunday Sun still.
Tom, you're right. Was Martin Thomas. Peter Beardsley and his talkings tells you that Martin didn't fancy it after letting in a few goals. Anybody remember the keeper that went in after that? There was a keeper before Peter Beardsley. You have to do a show on all the old stuff. We do those were the days with George Mitchell, and they will be coming back, those shows. We've obviously had George wasn't well, then George went away. So it's just been a case of trying to get a get together with George and get it done. But the stuff that we've been talking about tonight, and you've got to remember, we're now coming into the 80s with George. Now, that's my era as well. So I think those shows will be interesting, I think, for people, because I'll be able to chuck in some stuff. I'll be chucking in a few memories. We might get Mitch on as well. I did suggest Mitch coming on with his dad, which would be fantastic. So watch this space. We're going into the golden age of Keegan as a player very soon. So keep an eye out for that. Those were the days. And watch them all back. We started in 1950, which was George's first season. So get yourself on. There's some fantastic shows, fantastic memories. Mozasel, that was a great trip down memory lane. Now, fab show again, Stephen Ross. Hope everyone hits the likes and subscribes to these amazing shows. Will you be doing another News of the World, Steve? I doubt it, Stephen. I've got to be honest. I'm focused more on the football and less on anything else, mate. There'll be the odd one, odd podcast about different things, but yeah, I'm keeping it strictly football on this channel, as I have done for the last year. So I don't think the News of the World stuff will be making a comeback anytime soon. And well done, Mark. You didn't spell it right, but that's as good enough for me. It was Chris Hedworth who went in goal before Peter Beardsley, and I think he broke a finger. I think Peter says he broke something else, but I think it might have been a finger, might have been his shoulder. I can't remember which, but he definitely broke some bone, and that's why he was out. And then Peter went in, and that was well. Might as well, Steve. Yeah, Dave will. Yes, Big Billy. Hope you're well, mate. Thank you very much. Wasn't Paul Stevenson, Chris Hedworth, Paul Shanks. You got it right there. I used to go to the Bridge Hotel for a photo to go to away games, says Michael. David says, I found a championship winners plaque for 84-85. If you want a photo for the show, David, send it to us on Facebook. I know you've sent that over. Mozza, I haven't seen the maxi cryptic messages. Work in silence. They'll know soon. So we'll have a look for that. And Geordie Toonville says, Anderson will fit in nicely. He broke a centre forward's nose with a punch last season and didn't get booked. And Mark Choke, we'll finish on this, Mark. Do you think another striker should be looked at with Wilson on last year of his deal? No sign of signing an extension. So yeah, he is in his last year of his deal, Ross. We've got Isak, who we know is already, settled into the Premier League. he's going to have a pre-season now and start flying. Would you sign another forward, mate, in this window?
I think it's a difficult question, actually, because in an ideal world, you probably would. You know, you'd probably sign another forward and another midfielder and another winger and another left back and another centre half and another right back. You've got to be. I think the club's got to be realistic and look at where the priorities are. And I don't think a number 9 when you've got Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak, and you're only really playing one up there. Anthony Gordon can maybe do a job through there. Joe Linton can do a job through there. Don't know if it's the priority right now, but I'm a little bit old-fashioned and I love my strikers. I love my centre forwards. I'd have 5 or 6 in my squad if I could. Top quality strikers, I think make so much of a difference. You know, you can turn a 0-0 draw into a 1-0 win. You look at players like, I know he's an exceptional player, but you look at the impact of somebody like Harry Kane has at Spurs, where, you know, he can carry a poor team, or he can make an average performance all of a sudden turn into a win just by that little bit of magic. So I love my centre forwards and my strikers, and I'd have certainly more in the squad, but I'm just not sure if Newcastle see it as the key area for this transfer window, certainly.
Fantastic show, mate. It has been like a trip down memory lane. Just tell people where they can find like your work and where people can find you, Ross.
Yeah, I'm on. You can find us on Twitter for the time being until Mr. Musk pulls the plug on all that. Or you can catch us. You know, like I say, we've been doing loads of stuff on the Chronicle. We're going to be running a series on the Chronicle and Cross Reach PLC as well. But we're going to for Newcastle purposes on some of the young talent that's coming through the ranks at St James's, and who the kind of the next generation of players are. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, we'll be putting out all the survey results and everything else out that we've done recently as well for people to take a look at.
Great stuff. See you next week, Ross. Been an absolute pleasure, mate. Take care. See you then.
Cheers, Steve. Thanks, everyone.